means Deen and everything in between with your host, Aliyah Qayum. Today, I am joined by Sister Shaima Kraba, who is an author and an authorpreneur. So you guys may recognize her if you were at the New Year's Goals party. She was actually a speaker there, and she was so awesome. It was so cool. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself because I feel like you've got a lot of things.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Aliyah. Okay, so my name is Shaima, and Aliyah, as she said, I am an authorpreneur. What that means is an entrepreneur, but in the book publishing world. Essentially, my mission in life is to basically find stories and preserve them, inshallah. Also write a few of my own. I find that stories are powerful. They hold wisdom. They hold ways. It's actually a source where you can connect with people. So I would say I'm a storyteller, either through speaking or through writing and what have you. And I've also just started not too long ago my own podcast series called Illogical Logic, where basically what we discuss is illogical logics that hold us back as Muslims from attaining our greatest potential. I believe the Muslim community has so much to offer, and what's holding us back is our way of thinking from actually achieving and being the best versions of ourselves, inshallah. So yeah, I'm also a book coach. So that's something that I do on the side, where I get to coach people on how to write a story. And if the story or the author doesn't match like what or align, for example, somebody might be super into sci-fi and maybe it's a sci-fi that I really like, or maybe a sci-fi that I'm not really 100% on it, but I know a few people who are very good at that, and they're Muslim and they're also coaches as well. So I would connect that person to there. And also my dream was one day, inshallah, to build the publishing business that I opened 6 years ago, inshallah, to publish other people's works. So either mainstream or self-publishing. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell. But for me right now, what I'm really focusing on is the podcast series and the writing and the coaching part of it, inshallah.
Mashallah, that's amazing. You've got like so many things going on. I don't know how you do it. But before we do jump into the actual interview part of the event, I'm going to just do a very rapid fire questions. Basically, I'm going to say it really quickly and you give the quickest answer that you can, okay? Okay, so 3,
kind of nervous.
2, yeah, it's honestly, I would be nervous too, but it's fine. It's pretty easy.
Okay.
So 3, 2, 1. Favorite hobby?
Ooh, I thought of soccer. That was the first thing that came to my head. I love soccer. I haven't played it in a long time, but yeah.
That's cool. Favorite book?
Ooh, that's hard.
That problem.
Oh, this is hard. Oh my gosh. This is hard. That's really hard.
You can choose a few if you can't choose one.
Okay. Okay, you know what? This is a good book for you guys. Okay, I'll tell you guys a book when it's around your age, because some of the books that are my favorite right now, they're maybe a little bit too mature for you guys. Okay. One of my favorite series is by Shannon Greenland. Okay, it's like a spy book series. I actually have it in my Kindle. 1 second, give me 2 seconds and I can find it for you. I know the one book that the first book of the series is called Model Spy. Right. Yeah, Model Spy is the first book of the series by Shannon Greenland. Yeah, perfect. It's the Specialist series. Those are one of my favorite series growing up. Oh my gosh.
That sounds so good. I should check it out.
Yeah.
What is one goal that you have for 2021?
Be true to myself.
That's good. That's a good one. Favorite movie?
Oh my gosh.
No,
I don't really want to say it because again, it's much more for a higher audience, and I don't want to say a movie that is like,
No, don't worry about it. It's just a rapid fire, so it can be anything. We've got adults too watching.
Okay. 1 second. One of my favorite movies growing up when I was a kid. Okay. It was a book series as well, but it's also a movie. It's called The Series of Unfortunate Events.
Oh, I've heard of that one.
I was very obsessed with the book series as well. Even Harry Potter, I was like really obsessed with it when I was a kid. I really loved the movies as well. They were very engaging. or even like
That's a good one.
Spider-Man or like Batman, even though there's obviously not everything was PG halal in there, but like I like the superhero stories and stuff like that too.
Yeah, that's a good one. What is your favorite product at the moment?
My favorite product?
Yeah, it can be anything. Tech, beauty, anything like that.
Oh, okay. I'm into phones. Like I'm really into phones on laptops. So anything techy. So like the HP Spectra laptop, it's like a computer that can turn into a tablet. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is really cool.
Yeah.
What is something that confuses you?
You know what? That it goes back to what I want to do this year, which is be true to myself, inshallah. Okay. What confuses me the most is the illogical logics that we have in the Muslim community. So I'm trying to actively undo the illogical part about it. So it used to confuse me, but I realized I'm like, by actually sitting with the illogic part to make sense of it, like why do we understand things a specific way? It helps us to counteract it, you know? So that's the part that would confuse me. Yeah.
Right. What is a pet peeve of yours?
Oh, you know those people that chew with their mouths open, or like you know when you're praying and they're like, no, that drives me crazy. Like, oh my gosh, like, or chewing like a camel or something drives me nuts. I can't.
Like a camel.
Yeah.
And the last one is favorite emoji.
Ooh. Okay, the ones that I use the most is like the smirky one and the three heart in the face one. But the one that I think is hilarious is this one, the I'm gonna show you one. The show you. I think that one's hilarious.
That one's the best one too. Yeah, that's definitely a good one. Well, thank you so much for the rapid fire questions. Those were like really fun and like to know more about you.
Yeah. Okay.
So now we're gonna jump right into the questions about the interview section of this event. So the first question that I have for you is, when writing a book, what has been your biggest struggle, or what is your biggest struggle now?
Okay, that's a very good question, and it changes over the years. Okay. So I want to give you like an idea of what that looks like, because this is really important. Why? Because if your struggle doesn't come to that, what was one of my biggest issues growing up is that because I was measuring my struggle as a writer to somebody else's struggle or lack thereof, I thought there was something wrong with me, right? It's an illogical logic. That's why I think it's really important. Like some of the things that held me back from writing, it really changed over the years. Like my writing career started at 17. And what stopped me then isn't what's stopping me now. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It grows and changes. And even with each book and even with each story, it could change. And so it's really important that whatever I share today, it's just off the top of my head. I'm sure there's more, but I also want to make it very important, put a disclaimer that if that's not your struggle or you have a similar struggle, that's totally fair and valid. And there is a solution. So always reach out and get that answer. There's nothing wrong with you. Okay. It doesn't mean I know everything. I'm not God. I can't know everything and have every single problem. You know what I'm saying? So it's just understand that it is very valid. If your experience isn't the same as mine, it doesn't mean that yours is any less valid. Again, like I said, what I'm going to share right now is just off the top of my head, but it could differentiate. Okay. So when I was younger, like at 17, I hated English. Okay. Absolutely hated English. And you're like, how the heck are you a writer? Okay. So what happened was, this is how Allah works in mysterious ways. So anyways, I got into an accident, like I said, and it forced me to take off my last year of high school. Okay. I had to do my last year of high school a year after. Okay. So what happened to me was, I was obsessed with reading books. Okay. Not because I am a book, not because I'm like, oh, I love, books or whatever, but because I also hated reading at one point. I realized that I was reading the wrong books. I wasn't reading things that made me feel interested or excited. So when I saw books like The Model Spy, right? Like by the Specialist series, those were really cool stories. So what I realized is that I said about books or the reading or writing, what I liked was a cool story. Okay. That's really important because I didn't understand that at the time. Okay. So what attracted me was a story. When I was actually after my accident and I had to stay for a year, before I can go back and redo my grade 12 year, because I couldn't do it for that 1 year. What happened to me was I realized that there wasn't any really cool stories left for me to read at the library. And I was so saddened by it. So I remember reading a quote saying that if the book you're looking for is not on the shelf, then what's stopping you from writing it? So there was 2 articles that came out and that I read or stumbled on when I was just like Googling stuff and whatever. That just triggered this idea in my head. Okay. So I was like, whoa, the story character, we all imagine, right? We all have that imagination. So, oh, like I imagine what's gonna be like to be this and this, and then you imagine yourself as whatever, right? We all like don't admit it, but it's true. In our comforts of our own bed, when the lights are closed, we're supposed to be sleeping. We're like, okay, I'm gonna imagine I'm like fighting this like ninja warrior person or whatever the case is, right? So we all have an active imagination, and that's actually our storytelling side. Okay, so I just tapped into that superpower of mine. So what ended up happening was, I started, like, I had this idea. I'm like, oh my God, now I wanted to write. It activated my writing side, because I was like, this idea is so cool. I don't want to lose it. And I want to read it again if I want to read it again. So I started writing it, but I didn't know that at the time. Okay. So what was holding me back from writing my first challenge was the fact that I wasn't activating my writing superpower, because I was actually, looking at writing as a chore, as I always had as an assignment, and I always didn't like the topics that we had to read. I absolutely hated it. It just destroyed me. So it wasn't so much that I hated writing or that I hated reading, is that I wasn't reading the right things and I wasn't writing the right things. That would inspire the best part of me. That's why I think there's a problem in our education system when it comes to English, is that they're teaching writing and reading in a very, very wrong way, right? There are ways and tools to find ways to active, because each student might be different in what their interests are. And it would be very different if you encourage them to read the books that they want or they're interested in. And that way you'll see the true essence of their writing. The other writing you're writing is, you're writing at 1 or 2%. That's not you 100%. So when you're getting measured, actually, even your judgment and your grading is actually wrong. Okay. So it was interesting. And I'll tell you why this factors in really nicely. It goes back to when I went into grade 12, and I had a really cool English teacher. Okay. So we watched this movie. Okay. And then she said our homework was to compare this movie, like it was based off of a Shakespeare book, with a book of your own choice. Okay. I was like, wait, a book of your own choice? Are you serious? Like, this never happens, right?
Yeah.
And then I was like, can I use the book that I just wrote? Like that, like last year. And she's like, I was like, it's not published or anything, but like, I mean, it's just, it's written though. Right? I mean, it's copyrighted, but it's not like, So then she's like, sure. So she's like, can I actually read your book too? And I was like, sure. So I gave her a copy. She read it. She read my thing. And that was one of my best writing. Actually had so much fun doing that assignment. And I can even understand why. Okay. I didn't understand why at the time. This is why it's so important to understand what you do and why you do it. Okay. But I didn't realize that at the time. The other thing that I didn't realize at the time was that I had to do these elective courses. So you could do dance, you could do drama, you could do whatever. So I wanted to do the fun stuff like drama or dance or whatever, right? And all those classes were filled up. I was so mad. So I was forced into two options. One was business, and the other one was creative writing. I was like, oh my God, more writing? No, but then I can't graduate. And I already lost a year, right? So I didn't want to like lose more time, right? So I was like begrudgingly agreed to the course, and I was so angry. But I'm so happy because when I did business, it taught me and it helped me discover my inner Khadija. Okay. And I had this teacher that taught me. So I also think that sometimes it's not that there's anything wrong with what you're studying, it's who's teaching it. Sometimes you have a teacher that really just doesn't know the topic and how to connect it to the students, and it's so important. Okay. So sometimes you're not the idiot. Sometimes just your teacher just doesn't know how to connect with you and the topic. So number one, it taught me a business side of myself, and I was like, wow, this is actually really fun and interesting. I never thought business could be so interesting, right? And then the other thing about creative writing is where I really discovered the secret society of writing. Okay. So this was all about creativity. It wasn't, the writing came from the creativity. And he was the first teacher that ever said that. I'm like, how come I hate my English class, but I like your class? It never made sense because they're both English, right? I was so confused. And he said something, stories actually are something that is in our head. It's an imagination. But language, English, Arabic, whatever, is just a tool to bring the story out. So actually, English isn't about, like, you're not a great writer because you know English. You're a great writer because you're creative. And that took me a good 12 years to understand what he meant. And it's not until now that I'm like, wow, that makes so much sense. That it's not that, because that's why I hated grammar. I hate all that stuff. It was so boring to me, okay? But what I liked was the story part. And I could never understand how come I could hate and love something so much, okay? So that was what I discovered. And that's what I'm like, that's why I actually purposefully in school never took English courses after university, because I was so afraid it would kill my creativity. It would kill the part of me that I was like, I wanted to just protect so much. So I would edit people's stories. I would edit people's essays all the time. And I did it because it's just like something that I liked changing and making it better. So it tapped into my creative side. So that's how that evolved. And then it became a thing where my writing evolved as well. And I noticed that I was going towards more truer stories, so nonfiction. But I like the fiction part. Fiction means it reads like a really cool story. It's like it's not a true story, but it's like fictitious. But I liked true stories. But here's the funny part: I hated biographies, but I love people's life story. But a life story is a biography. So I'm like, how come I hate and love the same thing? Like, what is that? What does that mean, right? I was getting stuck. Like, how do I hate and love this thing so much? And it took me time to understand that a biography is just a boring way of telling someone's story that is pretty cool, right? So there's there's a fiction, you could tell someone's story, but this depends on how you say it. So I realized, I was like, okay, see, like, so these were like things that, these were the kind of the two dualities I used to always struggle with and fight with over time. And then the struggles for producing my work became different, because now it became about a money thing. So then I had to now set time to start working and start trying to invest in it, but I also have bills to pay. So it was so challenging. My challenges at that point was hard for me to commit to my writing because I was too busy trying to create the funds to produce it. So my challenges were always different over time, but I'm really grateful for these challenges because it helped me sit with the issues a lot more. And it helped me recognize the biggest thing. So now my biggest writer's block, okay? My biggest writer's block, I would say, in the last few years is the reason, and this is probably the biggest one I think all of us experience, and some of us are too afraid to admit it, but that's okay. As long as it sits and it plants a seed in your head, one day it will hopefully flourish. A lot of us are afraid to tell the truth. Especially when it comes to true stories. We're afraid to tell the truth because we feel like we have to protect the people that hurt or created the hurt or part of the hurt or part of whatever. And so that's the first part. And so we aim for perfection. And when we do, it's not really being truthful. So what happens is we get stuck and then we think, oh, I'm such a bad writer because I can't write. But the thing is, it's not that you can't write. You're stopping your superpower of writing because you're holding it back. Your writing tool will only work when you're truthful. So a lot of us are ready to tell the truth, but we're so afraid to tell it. And what tells an incredible story is the courage to tell the truth. When you look at people who tell the truth, some of the most powerful stories that hit you are the ones that were so truthful because you got to experience something so powerful that you don't get to experience every single day. And that's the truth. And so that's the one that I think is the most important, biggest writer's block. So yeah, that was kind of a long answer to the thing, but I wanted to just do justice. Yeah.
No, it is good because and also your journey just showed that like subhanAllah, like just all the struggles that seemed like the worst thing, like your acts and things like that, it built up to who you are today, and it built up to where you are today. And you know, you could have not been where you are today if it wasn't for those struggles that you went through. So like it's good that you really went in depth into it and we really got to see what you went through. So the next question I have for you is, growing up, did you see a lot of Muslim role models that were authors, or did you have anyone to look up to that was Muslim?
No. And the ones that were Muslim authors were always like really old, like people that were like either dead or never seen them or something like that. And I'm not going to say, and I'm not going to take away from that because it did give me at least an opportunity to see a little bit of myself in the story, which was nice. But I'm talking like when I graduated high school, it was 2010, guys, you know? And so like at that time, that's like 11 years ago, guys, okay? Almost 11 years ago, like it was a very different world. Like right now you can kind of see a little bit more of it, but it's so different. It's so different. Even right now, I would say it's probably even worse because before you could never see Muslim representation. Now you're seeing Muslim representation, but not Islam, true Islam. So now you're seeing what looks like a Muslim, but not really Islam. So you're not really still seeing a part of you being represented. And it's a very difficult truth to admit. But if we're not going to change it, if we're not going to find these, if we're not going to own up to the truth and say it, it's not going to make any changes, we're not going to make any changes. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
Yeah,
if we don't step up to the plate, we can't be role models for the next generation. That's so true. Like growing up, I never remember seeing anyone really, like any Muslim who was in the industry, whether that's in the media, whether that was like in books and things like that. So just we're seeing it emerge, but unfortunately not in the best way. And hopefully we can change that, inshallah, soon. So my next question for you is, why did you decide to be a writing coach and start a book academy instead of just being your own author and writing your own book?
Please repeat the question. You got cut off.
I see. Oh yeah. So why did you choose to be a book coach and a writing coach instead of just writing your own book instead and just leaving it at that and being your own author?
Okay, perfect. I think it's already in my nature. I always like to connect. And here's the biggest thing I would say: to help yourself, you have to help others. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you're stuck in a scene. You're like, I can't make sense of it, and you're like, you know what? I need Allah to help me out. So let me help somebody else out. You're working somebody else's scene about a completely different topic. It could be about how to make an apple pie or something. And yours is about like a murder mystery. And you're trying to figure out, how am I going to say who the killer is without saying who the killer is? You're trying to show it, like give the tip, right? Or whatever. Right. And in helping them, and you're trying to figure out their problem, you don't even realize you solved your own problem. And you're like, oh, brown sugar. And everyone's like, what? And you're like, yeah, just sorry. Yeah, so just write that there, and just 1 second to write something down. And then you're like, you write it. And then suddenly in your story, you realize the murderer has a sweet tooth and it has to have brown sugar and not white sugar, because the white sugar might give them an allergic reaction. And that's the hint that you wanted the person to read. And then that way they could figure out later on. You know what I mean? It could be something like that. I'm just making it up right now, right? But that's what I mean. Like, have something that's like, I really believe if you're gonna be the best writer, you should also help others, because it also helps your craft. It helps you with your creativity. And sometimes we're so good at helping other people than helping our own selves. Haven't you noticed that? Sometimes you can get the best advice to somebody else when it's not you. It puts things objectively. But sometimes in doing that, you end up solving your own problem through somebody else's problem. So I really am a firm believer to be also like a good writer. Like, and again, just to bring that Deen and Dunya together, it's always good to help others. Don't keep that just to yourself. Because I remember for me, that was one of my biggest struggles, right? Growing up, one of my biggest struggles as a writer too, it was hard to find somebody to help me. It was hard, and whoever did would end up writing their own book or whatever, and they just like leave you hanging, right? They didn't honor their promise or whatever the case is, or something's come up or whatever. But it became very challenging for me sometimes to find the solution. And so sometimes you can't always find your own solution. Sometimes you'll need a team of people. Sometimes by helping the other person, they can even help you. Like, yo, can you take a look at my work then? And they're like, yeah, I'll take a look at yours. Because sometimes you can't edit your own work. Sometimes you're so in your world, you can't see it. You need somebody else to see it from an objective lens. And I don't know, like, sometimes you have a book inside of you and you write it, and sometimes you go a few years without another story to write, but you're like, I still love stories and I want to read them, so maybe I can help other people with their stories, right? Before I get an idea for my own, or whatever the case is, right? So there's many reasons why, but I love helping other people with their stories. It makes me so excited, like either stories or even like business ideas, like developing it, like developmental editing is something I'm really passionate about. So yeah.
Right. Yeah, you're right. Something that I've heard before too is that you should have people on your team that are better at you at something. And it's so true, because it's like we are all trapped in our own world, and sometimes we're so like passionate about something, we don't see the very obvious thing that's in front of us. But if you have someone there that's better than you, they can catch that. And like if you have someone there for you, helping you out there, they can catch what mistake you're making and why you aren't able to take off the way you want to take off. So you're so right about that. Yeah, absolutely. So no, the next question,
I agree with everything you just said. Absolutely. Like it can't just be yourself. Even your own book, like you might have an idea, but you'll need a team of people to help you out too. There might be somebody I'll give you an example. There might be somebody who's an incredible editor. Okay. But they just can't come up with ideas, or their creativity is just like, their creativity is in editing, right? Yeah. But that's their creativity. And that doesn't make them a bad writer or a bad person. It just means their style is different. And that's where they're best at. That's where they thrive at. That's why we have this issues, illogical logic in the Muslim community, where we keep comparing each other's kids, sometimes to your own kids or to other people's kids, because, oh, how come they're doing this and you can't do it? But then if you're going to measure, a fish to climb a tree, you know what I mean? Like a monkey can, The fish will always think it's stupid, right? It'll always think that it's an idiot, like it's not. No, but the fish is not in the right environment, right? So
Right.
it's really important to know what you're really good at, because the best of you will come in that. If you start putting this person in everything, it's not going to grow in anything, you know, and it will affect the person's self-esteem. And that took me a very long time to understand. And that's why it's so important. And that's why, and also there's a humbleness in it. There's a humbleness that's so critical, that shows you that as good of a writer or as an idea maker as you are, that idea could have come to fruition if there wasn't a team helping you get there, right? It humbles you. You're not the be all and all of all greatness, right? You recognize, I'm really good at coming up with ideas, but I kind of struggle with putting them together into work, and I need help with that, right? And sometimes you might be good at 2 of them, but then you need editing, right? So you're never going to be perfect at something, right? And that's really important.
Right. Yeah, that's so true. Yeah. And also just like going off that, it's so true about how like we just need to understand that we have our weaknesses and we can't get mad at that. It's just, that's why there's so many of us around the world, because we all over the world, because we have our strengths, we have our weaknesses to help each other out. So yeah, you're so true. That's so true. So my next question is, my next question is, what keeps you motivated to keep going? Because like you said, you go into writer's blocks and things like that, and that's a very common thing. So how do you keep yourself motivated to keep going?
There was a lot of times I didn't feel motivated. I'll be honest. And there's moments where I even gave up. And I think it's important to say that, because it's part of your journey. It's part of that frustration. And in rock bottom is where you realize the only way is back up. And sometimes you got to lick your wounds and give yourself the space to feel the feelings that you feel, but you got to keep going. And I can now say 2 things is purpose and intention. And all that goes back to the Quran and Sunnah. It really does. And it's so critical. It's so important. So critical, so important. If you don't know why you're doing what you're doing, you're not going to get anywhere. If you don't know where you're going to be in 5 years, you're already there. And take a moment to think about that, because it's true. If you don't have direction, you're not going to have direction if you don't know what your purpose is, what your goal is. Even with your book, if you don't have your core message cultivated and the intention behind it, your writing superpowers will not work. So it's really important. And you realize when you don't feel good and you feel anxious and you feel fearful and you feel all these things, you'll realize that you've been doing so much and so little of what actually gives that spark for you. You know, you end up like, so when I look at myself, there's so many times I just didn't focus on what I really wanted to do because I was so afraid. For example, like I have to have a job, because if I don't, how am I going to pay my bills? And then I'm going to starve, and I'm going to be this and I'm going to be that. You know what I mean? And a lot of what made me really happy and was working on my creativity and so I just kept putting on the side burner for the sake of goodness, for the sake of whatever that is. But you end up killing parts of yourself, right? I didn't honor parts of myself. And so that's why it's so important to be true to who you are, right? And be true to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you as your talents, and owning them, right? Like there is a fear like, oh, who am I to talk about writing, right? How much, oh, they're now going to ask, oh, well, what degree do you have? But I don't have a degree, right? I taught myself a lot of things, right? Well, technically Allah did. He just put tools in my life, people that I could learn under, books that I studied on. It was done actually the way a lot of our old scholars have done, right? Where they've searched for knowledge organically. Not it was, you went to school, paid an extreme amount of money just to basically like go out of it and then be in debt and then not even have a job in it, right? Like I said, an English degree does not teach you how to be creative. It doesn't, right? But you measure people according to a degree or status to validate their truth and what they're good at. We dismiss somebody who works hard or went to the University of Life. We dismiss that because that's not good enough. Because somehow we have this illogical logic that if you have this degree, if you have this, then you are valid enough to say something about it. And it took me a very long time to accept that that's not always the case. And it was very, very hard. Okay. And that has held me back big time. Absolutely. So it's really important to say like that, to go back to your question, what's going to keep you motivated? What's going to keep me motivated is being true to myself and being true to my message. Because if my message is truth, if my message is whatever it is, and I'm not standing by it, it's not going to work. I can't function when I'm not in alignment with what my message is. Your purpose has to be greater than that. So if your purpose is, you know what, this is going to be for the sake of Allah to spread the truth, Ya Allah help me, that should motivate you. Your why has to be greater than any bad day, because there will be bad days. There'll be days where you just feel lazy, or you just feel tired, or you just feel whatever, but then you remember why you started. And that's what keeps you going. And that's something that, guess what? I may be strong today to say it, but I may have my days coming up where I'm gonna have a hard time with that day. And the reason I'm saying that is because I'm at 29 saying this. This happened to me in the last 12 years as a writer. And I've had my days where my why wasn't strong enough to keep me going on the bad days, because you're not going to feel motivated every day. You know what I'm saying? You're going to have moments where you feel motivated, but not all the time. And unfortunately, the motivated days are probably very far, maybe 5% or 2%. And the other 98 and 95% is just your why has to fuel it. That's why your why has to be powerful, and it has to be true. Very, 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 very important.
Right. And how can you craft and find your why? Because a lot of us are students or younger, right? And we find our passions by just doing things, and we find something that we like, but we can't really put the words to the why we like it. We just know that we do. So I guess, how can you craft that why, and how can you find that why? And how did you maybe specifically find that why?
I didn't even understand a lot of the why I did. Remember I was telling you when I was 17, I was like, how come I like English and hate it? Well, at first I hated it before I experienced some parts that were really cool, right? I couldn't even understand why of it. I would say journal it out. And sometimes you're not going to understand a lot of why you like it. And ask Allah, make Allah your best friend. Talk to him, you know, even if it's just you in your bed. I'm like, oh, I don't know why I really like this, but it's really interesting. And journal it out, you know. There's times where I was able to journal it out in writing or in video. I'm still trying to figure out ways to understand things, but sometimes you're not going to understand the truth, but sometimes Allah will guide you to it. You're just resisting it, right?
Yeah.
Because we look at our parents, may Allah reward them and bless them, but they're also imperfect too, right? And it's really important to recognize that sometimes we just are wise because we want our parents to be proud of us, right? But if we make Allah proud, by default, our parents should be proud. If they were also looking towards what Allah would be pleased with, right? So of course, if Allah's pleased with what your action is, then by default, your parents should also be, right? That's how it's supposed to be. Unfortunately, that's not always the case. And again, it's a difficult truth to admit, but it is the reality. And this doesn't mean you're supposed to sit there and start boycotting everybody who doesn't support. That's not the case. The case is understanding and sitting with the why. I think one of the best stories probably to reflect on is the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam. He didn't know about Allah, but he knew it couldn't be the idols, right? And he was a kid, right? But he knew. But he was so truthful to seeking the truth of that, Allah gave it to him, and he didn't give it to him immediately. He had to go past a few tests, right? So I want to normalize not understanding a feeling, but it's okay to sit with it until you find it, because we're in this society where everything has to be immediately. It's like a drive-through, right? Like instant, off the press. You have to know instant. But we're not designed to always have instant. Because if we have something instant and it's something so powerful and meaningful as a purpose, it's going to take time to understand. And it's going to be your life's work, right? To keep working on that purpose and editing and making it better and stronger. You'll never fully 1,000,000% always know the purpose. You will have a good, strong foundation. It's supposed to be Allah and Deen, and it works for your Deen and your Dunya. But it's going to be something that's very hard to cultivate. For example, in a Muslim community, for some reason, we have this logic. It's illogical, but it's a logic that we hold as Muslims, is like, it's haram. It's very bad to have money. Okay. Like if you do something for sabilillah, you can't get paid for it. You know how hard that is to overcome? It's part of your purpose. You're like, I need to not starve, but I also like want to do for sabilillah. And apparently I can't have one without the other. And then you realize when you go to the actual Deen, you can actually still make money and also be a good Muslim and have the good intention. But that took like a long time, and I'm still trying to like be strong in that in it, but it's hard. That's what I mean. Like purpose will get better and stronger, and you'll get tested, and there's things you have to unlearn and relearn and this, and I want to normalize that, because there's no such thing as perfect. That's what's called practice. Practice means you're going to make mistakes, you're going to erase a lot of things, you're going to write over the erase mark, you're going to edit, you're going to white out, you're going to this, but guess what? When you do a rough draft in writing and you keep working on it and you polish it, it perfects it. That's the purpose behind it. That's the purpose behind being a practicing Muslim, being a practice writer. You'll never perfect it. And it's really important to understand that, because by never being perfect, you'll constantly be in a position to get better and better and better. Because the only thing that's perfect is the Quran and Allah. And it doesn't get better than that. So basically, we can only strive to be as good as we can get, you know? So.
Yeah, no, that's very assuring, because as someone who, like, I'm someone who loves to code, and also I really like learning about the business area of things. So it's just like, the reason I was also asking that question was also kind of about me. I was like, if I don't know my why, am I doing the right thing? But it's assuring to know that, like, not everything is perfect. Of course, I have, like, my basis of why I like it and why but not knowing everything about why you like it, it's like, it's very assuring to know that that's not the reality of things.
So I have a question about coding. What got you into it? Let's do an example, because sometimes when we talk and we don't understand it, but let's do it in practicality. You said you love coding, right? But you don't know why you love coding. Okay. So let's decode that.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Tell me what got you into coding.
Right. So I actually was walking into a classroom of mine, and a teacher approached me and she said, "Hey, there's this competition. It's an all-girls competition. Basically, you code an app, and then it has to help your community in some way. It has to fit the 17 UN, one of the 17 UN sustainable goals." And that just kind of like sparked something in my mind. And I was super excited about it as soon as I heard it. And then I coded it, and I really liked it, and I just loved doing it, creating something. That's how I first got into it.
Okay. So you know what? So let's look at a few things. First things first. Okay. Number one, let's all do this exercise. Okay.
Okay, sure.
So haven't you noticed something about you and me in our story? We both stumbled on something that we never thought we would like or be interested in, and it just got presented to us. So what does that show? Allah just showed you something about yourself.
Right.
He's presented something that you never got to know about, and you suddenly it sparked something in you. It means there was something inside of you didn't even know about yourself. Okay. And that's okay, because that's really cool. But what else did it actually spark? There's something else that's very common. What's common between you being a coder and you doing the Sunnah Camp thing? What's the commonality between the two?
So like this specifically Muslim teens Deen? That was a little hard one, I guess. With code, I think there's the top thing that can come into my mind right now is just you learn so much, and you learn such different areas that you wouldn't think that you would learn if it wasn't for what you were given, that platform that you're given.
Okay, I'll tell you something that seems to be a commonality. Okay. In both positions, you are given a really interesting idea, but you have to solve it by creating. Basically, you have to solve the problem by using you're using problem solving skills.
Right.
You're using a foreign language that no one understands but you, right? But it actually makes sense, right? So the two things is that you're trying to solve a problem by creating a code, right? In this case, you're creating a space to actually solve these issues that a lot of these people have, but it's all about a concept in the end. The concept in the end is it's a Sunnah Camp. It's a space where you're basically doing the same thing in coding, but you're doing it in real life, right? You have an idea, and now you're building the app, and with coding, you have to constantly code, and you have to like maybe delete and edit and this to maintain this this why, right? The why you're doing it, right? So in this case with Sunnah Camp, you have a lot of people that come with different backgrounds, different things, but the same thing that links you guys all together is your Deen and Islam. But everybody has aspirations and goals and dreams, but they don't have a space to be able to talk about it. And so you guys created a space. So you were able to decode a lot of what the other people are going through, and so you have a problem solving side to you, right? You like to fix things and think about it. You're a thinker, right? And you're also creative, right? So do you see how like you sit down with something, and even right now as we're talking, I'm sure you're probably itching to just like go to your own little quiet space and just like think about it and like actually analyze it. But in a position of you're like, you're actually learning more about yourself, right? So that's how you get to understand why you do something. And then you ask Allah. The most important thing is ask Allah to guide you. I never knew I liked it for myself. And tell Allah, like, that's so cool that you showed this to me. I'm interested in knowing why that is. Help me understand it. Help me recognize it. Help me accept it. And help me honor and protect it. And use it to service in your service, right? That's how that works. And I think it's going to be really important for everybody to go back and watch this side again and again and again, and really just sit with it. Because sometimes you may not know the answer immediately, and you say it's hard. It's actually not hard. It's very easy. It's staring right in the face. Sometimes we just have to decode some parts of ourselves to understand the code, right?
Yeah.
That's just what it is. And so it's just, think of every problem like a puzzle, right? You have to rearrange the pieces to make the full picture. The answer is already there, just like a riddle. When the person gives you a riddle, you know the answer is already there. It's just a matter of you trying to figure out and understand, you know? So it's really important to sit with it. Really, really important. Yeah.
You literally just gave the definition of me to like everyone, and I didn't realize that was the definition of me until you just said it right now, because it's true. Like I knew, okay, I like problem solving and I like to be creative. That's just kind of like what I knew about it. But then when you explained it in that way, where with Sunnah Camp and with coding, you're creating a space and you're creating a solution in a creative way, and I was like, that was mind blowing right there. Like it's so cool. And even with the Sunnah Camp thing specifically, I was like, okay, well, I like having this space and giving the space to people that I got, where I got to learn more about my Deen and made me the person that I am today, and closer to Allah the way I am now. So like the way you worded it, like you made it so simple and easy, and I think like you made it seem doable, where we can find our why statement and we can find our passion. So like that hurt so much. That was so awesome.
It's
like
not
that was
really
honestly so mind blowing.
Like honestly, the only thing I would say is with yourself and with each other, we have to have the dedication to want to understand. And if you do, that's the secret to the sauce. Then you will eventually get it. And even if today you don't get it, tomorrow you might get it, or maybe 10 days later. But every day show up and with a dedication and a positive attitude that you will get it, because Allah will give you the answer, and you're unlearning parts about yourself. Your answer was right there. You know it. It's just sometimes we don't allow ourselves to know it. You know? Also, it was kind of quick, and and sometimes with things like this, it's really important to just sit with it. And you know, sometimes it will come in a few days. Sometimes you'll watch something and you're like, oh, like I said, brown sugar, right? And you're like, oh gosh, I get it, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
No, that was just so awesome, and I hope everyone like goes back and watches that too, because that was so mind blowing to me. So I can't imagine how mind blowing that would be to like anyone else, and just finding their why statement. So Jezaki Allahu Khairan, and subhanallah, you're right. Like sitting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and just saying like, Allah, please guide me and help me. Like that's just so important, and that's something that we can brush under the carpet sometimes, but we have to make Allah our best friend. So it's a habit. It's something like this, and like right away we go ahead and we ask for Allah to guide us. So like you're so right, subhanallah, about that. So we're gonna have
also ask Allah to own it.
Exactly.
To own it too, because sometimes we don't own our skill set, and when we don't, we actually do a disservice to our purpose, and then we feel purposeless. But that's because your purpose, you denied it, right? So you have to be able to own your skill set and be like, that's me, and I'm proud of it. And you know, and maybe it's not what you do, but that's okay. You have your own, you know. And by owning it, there's no space for jealousy and envy, because you own what Allah gave you. Even if somebody else is like, look at superpowers, right? Like look at these like I like to think of it like, you know, like these like superheroes like Batman and this, they all have their own superpowers, right? No one's more jealous of the other, but sometimes they make it just to be funny, but a lot of it, they own their own superpower, even though they're all superheroes, right? So you might be a coder, I'm a storyteller, you know, I decode things too, but in a storytelling way. That's how I can just like process, right? Somebody else might have an analytical way of doing it. You don't know what everybody's process is, but Allah gave a specific tool or superpower for you, and it's totally okay to own it. I think it's super important to own it, because when you don't protect it, you don't honor it, you don't respect it, you don't care for it the way it needs to be cared for, and it defeats your purpose, right? So really important.
Yeah, and then we're so quick to give up on it. That's so true. Just like how that can happen if we don't own it. So we're gonna have 2 more questions. So my second last question to you is just, you had the experience of speaking at the New Year's goals party, and you speak very often through your videos and things like that. How has your experience been speaking at the New Year's goals party and just speaking in general, having the platform to do so?
Honestly, I'm gonna say right now, a few months ago, I started videos actually in 2016, okay? It's like, it's in my Facebook page somewhere in the very bottom, somewhere like, oh my gosh. And it was super nerve-wracking for me, okay? It was super nerve-wracking. Again, all these fears. Can you imagine telling like your heir parents, I want to do YouTube? They'll be like, what? Just own. That's what I mean. And again, your parents, they say it because they want the best for you, right? But sometimes they don't even know themselves what they're saying no to, because of what they were conditioned to believe, right? And that's why, like, this is not to diss parents. Again, this is to put all of us into account. We sometimes reject things without really properly understanding or taking the time to understand why your kid wants to do something. It's really important that when they do it, it'd be so much nicer if you were there to be part of the journey, you know, even if you don't really understand it, right? But it would mean so much, and it would do so much for your relationship with them. Oh my gosh, the gift that keeps on giving is what I would say. But anyways, I remember they're like, so you want to be a clown? Because I said, like, I want to be like a comedian, right? And they're like, so you want to be a clown? I was like, do you know how much they pay me? Because y'all are talking about, like, you know. But anyways, I was afraid. And I let other people's thoughts, however well intending, and their advice, however well intending, destroy my dreams, or in this case, put them on pause. Okay. And then I was so scared to come back and do a video. And it was actually Sheikh Muhammad Sharif in the visionary class. He said, she might just do it. I'm like, you know how many times I had to re-edit this video? Like, so many times. He's like, you're just go off the cuff. And I realized with myself, like, I have, like, I it's not, I don't want like to be prepared, but I feel like I've been preparing my whole life. I'm just ready to go off the cuff. You know what I'm saying? So like, those questions, I'm like, did she ask me that? I was actually going to review them before I like watch it. I didn't even get a chance to read the questions you sent me. I was like, oh my, I hope I don't embarrass myself. That's okay. It's okay. Even if you embarrass yourself, it's part of the journey. Own it. That's what I'm saying. Own it. Okay. But anyways, yeah, I was super nervous. Right. But I'm not gonna lie, the more I'm doing it, the more comfortable I'm getting. And it just shows me, again, it's a sign that says, like, you know what? Allah put this inside of you. You know, you're meant to do this, right? So again, owning it and respecting it and honoring it and watering it with all that love, okay, and all of the eyes, right? And that's how you keep doing it. So like, again, I'm really honored and like that y'all reached out to me. Honestly, like, I think it was Sister Zakia that did it. Her and I linked up actually on Visionaries, how her and I connected. But yeah, she was the one that actually encouraged me to do this, right? And I actually was, if I have to be honest with you guys, that she was the person that when she invited me to do this, I was like, really, I felt really proud. I was like, wow, somebody actually like noticed me, right? And they saw something in me. And this is what goes to show. Sometimes it takes a stranger to see your greatness, sometimes even over your own family. I'm not talking about editing. You can't edit your own times because you're so in your world. Sometimes your parents or your family, they're so in your world, they don't see past it. They just see other things. And sometimes it takes a stranger to say, hey, I believe in you. Do you want to come and do this? Right? And I was really happy. And I remember when I was asked to do a bio about myself, I was like so afraid because I'm like, what do I say? But I had so much to say. I just didn't, it was the truth. And the reason I was afraid to tell the truth because it wasn't valid enough. It's not a degree. It's not something, whatever. So when I did choose to tell the truth, it still wasn't good enough. It's like, well, how can you say you started your podcast and you just launched your first episode yesterday? How's that even legitimate? You see criticism? It hurts. It really hurts. Yeah. And you're like, I'm really trying over here. I was actually being authentic, and somebody saw me. It's like, even if it's not, oh my gosh, this big thing, to me, it's like, it's a big deal. Sunnah Camp is a big deal because, you know, like, I'm sure to you guys, it's a big deal for you. And is that not important? Why does the whole world have to validate it for it to be important? Right. Why can't it just be one person or 5 people? Who made up this rule? And it has to be millions of people. And then you realize, why do you need millions of people if you can have even 20 that actually understand you? And you might have the rest of the million that doesn't even get you. Why would you even want to be near that million? Who made it? Who put that measuring stick, right? It was never that measuring stick. But subhanAllah, it led me to make one of my first videos on my podcast episode about don't be me at 29, where I'm finally owning my skill set. Yes, I don't have a degree. And the reason I did that video is because I didn't want to be afraid anymore, because I was feeling afraid. And that used to control me from what not to do, right? They say the richest place in the world is the graveyard, because a lot of people will die with their dreams because they never fulfilled it. And that used to always sit with me real hard. You know, am I going to die and not fulfill my dream? Am I going to be that person too? And so I don't want you guys to do that too. And that's why it's so, so important. And so the moral of the story is, you know what? If your dreams scare you, you're probably on the right track, honestly. And so, yeah, it's not easy every day to show up and do a video, but you just make tawakkul. You just have tawakkul on Allah that He'll make it easy, you know? And like I said, it's not perfect, but I am really honored, and I'm really glad that you guys invited me again. And again, I'm really proud of you. I'm really proud of you for doing this, because honestly, it was for Aliyah. This time I was like, yo, Aliyah, you trying to do this? Good for you. And you know why, Aliyah? I wish someone did that for me when
What?
I was your age. I wish somebody did that for me and said,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I actually remember asking, actually, it was actually a very famous celebrity. Okay, I'm not going to say her name, but it was a very, very famous
Okay.
celebrity who was going through a very, very difficult thing. And I was so like impressed by the story, and I was so amazed. I just wanted to like just like I don't know, just like I just want to write your book. I want to like help you write a book, whatever. Like even just talk on my podcast. I'm so excited. Like I love your story so much, and I felt your story and I felt your pain. And a part of me was like, if I sit here and say, oh, well, who the hell are you? What if she just ignores you, doesn't reply, right? And I was like, see, those are negative thoughts. So I said, no, what? I'm going to challenge myself. Just for the sake of it, I had this thought, I'm gonna beat it by actually doing it. So guess what? I actually sent her a message, I sent her an email, and I actually even did a little video just to show her that it's more than just words on a screen, right? Guess what happened?
Right.
She blocked me.
What?
On all the social media. And I'm not gonna lie, I'll tell you something. I'm gonna be honest here. I did feel fear, and I felt the fear of rejection. I felt those feelings that I had again, which is, oh, you're dumb, you're an idiot, you're this, you're who cares, like you're not even that important. All these things are not true. You know, it's shaitan and other people, like, you know. And the reason I'm sharing this with you guys, because I want to make it very important that we all have these thoughts where we beat ourselves down. We would never say these words to those we love. So how can we say this to ourselves? And I'm really happy she did do that, because Allah was teaching me something that I still needed to improve on my fear of rejection. Why was I so afraid of being rejected? And why is it that she has more power to say something about my worth than me, or the people who know me, have taken the time to know me, right?
Right.
So really the loss is on her end and not me. But it took me a journey to get to the point to say that. But you know what? It took one friend who said to me, Shaymat, knowing how hard you've been struggling to get there, I'm so proud of you for trying. And that made me cry, right? And it was the words that I wish I had said to myself first before my friend. But we're so unkind to ourselves, right? And it took a friend who said, I'm proud of you, right? Because somebody could look at it, oh, you're just being whatever. And it's not true. That's not your intention, but that's the way they want to look at it. That's why it's so important to know your truth and stand firm by it. But it took a friend who said, I'm proud of you for trying, right? I'm really proud of you for trying. So, and that's okay. And even if it's from a Muslim person, because that person was a Muslim too, this celebrity person, okay? And it just goes to show that Muslims are not perfect. They have their traumas too. Maybe I triggered her. I don't know, right? Like she's going through so much. Maybe she's been so used for so long that anything that remotely looks like it, even however well-intending, it's had that. And that's how we can give excuses for our Muslim brothers and sisters without belittling our own experiences. And that's why it's so important to stand true to yourself. And the reason I'm sharing this with you is to tell you I'm not perfect either. I'm not, right? But that's part of the beauty, right? And if we can have the courage to start sharing that I didn't get to this point because it was perfect and I didn't have tears or moments where I doubted myself. Of course I had them, right? We should normalize it. That way, if you're feeling it, good. It's part of the journey. You know, that much better. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, that's so true. How we just like belittle ourselves and like put ourselves down for so many things, and it takes another person or another like anyone to just recognize our hard work and recognize our own self. And it can't be us that says you're so good at this or you're amazing. And we sometimes find that to be conceited or something. But in reality, if you're just recognizing your work and recognizing the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us this gift, it's not conceited. It's just a good thing. It's gratitude. It's humbling. So, like, you're so right. That is being true to yourself is honestly the biggest piece of advice you could give to anyone, because that's what you need in anything. So, that's amazing. Do you have any?
But also the courage for you to reach out, right? I'm
sure
there's fear. Like, what if she says no? What if this? Right? Because we're so afraid, like we're gonna get rejected. And I'm just saying, I know what that's like, and that's why it's really important to never forget where you come from. I remember when I was your age, and I've also gotten rejected, and I really just badly wanted to do the right thing, but we never take the time to understand the other person. So never forget where you came from. Never forget where you started. No matter what success, don't forget step 1, because somebody else in their step 1 is going to hit you up at step 20. That doesn't mean you need other people at step 20 to feel some better part about yourself, right? And it's really, really important. It's actually in the Quran too. Surah Abasa wa tawalla an ja'akum al-a'ma. the Prophet was talking to the Yahuds, trying to give them dawah. He was doing a good thing. But the person who was actually sincere and wanted the dawah was somebody who was blind. And the Prophet didn't even say anything bad. He just said, like, not right now or something. I don't want to misquote the Prophet, but like basically, and a person who was blind came to the Prophet, subhanAllah. He was blind and he still saw the truth. And those who weren't blind couldn't even see it. That's the irony, right? It just goes to show, like, and Allah talked about it. Why? Because it's so important. We do that in our community. And I hope I don't forget this, right? That's what I'm afraid of. I'm afraid I'm going to forget this because Shaitan's always working on us, right? So I may be strong today, I remember today, but I hope I remember tomorrow, right? So always be humbled. Don't forget where you started, right? And it's what made you who you are today. So I want to applaud you for taking the courage to say and call and ask me to come here, Aliyah, because if you didn't ask, the answer would have been no. But if you asked, there was a 50% chance that it would be yes or no, right? But alhamdulillah, it was a yes. Okay.
Yeah, of course, that's so true. Like, that's honestly just so amazing. Like, you're stepping out of your boundaries, because the no can be the worst thing that can happen. So just, and at the end of the day, that's not that bad. Like, if you think about it, it's really not that bad. So sometimes Jezaki her so much, Sister Shaima, for joining us today. Honestly, like, this is just so cool. We learned so much today of just how to be true to ourselves and how to figure out our why. And I'm sure the people watching at home found this so beneficial. So yeah, is there anywhere else that people can find you, if they can Google you, anything like that?
Yeah, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, that type of thing. But Aliyah, one thing. You were going to ask me one last question. It's the last question. I know we're running out of time, but I still want to honor
right. Sorry, I quickly forgot about that. So what is a piece of advice you can give to someone wanting to start a business?
Okay. Take it to Allah first. Take it to the throne before you take it to the phone. Straight up. Take it to Allah first before you take it to anybody else. Ask Allah, Ya Allah, I really want to do this. And this is the part about istikhara I used to always misunderstand, because I'm like, oh man, how's it every time I ask in istikhara, the answer is always no, right? It's like that inshallah when your parents give it to you and it means no. Oh gosh, okay. Inshallah isn't actually meant to be no. Inshallah means you have the intention of doing it and you were going to do it and then things got blocked. That means Allah didn't will it, right? So it's really important to take it to Allah first and also be open that it's not going to work. And if it doesn't work, that doesn't mean it's a bad idea. It just means that you may have to try 100 times, and at 101 is when it's meant to be work. Or maybe it's not, maybe that business was meant to fail, but it helped you build the experience you needed to actually do the business you were actually meant to be doing, right? So be very open, ask Allah first, and don't ask anyone, including family sometimes, because sometimes family doesn't get the vision. Allah put an idea in your head, and sometimes the people we want them to get it the most don't get it until they see it, unfortunately. And sometimes
unfortunately,
back. Yes, make sure the people who are on, and it's probably the hardest lesson and it's the harshest one, but it's so important, because sometimes the people that kill your dreams first are the people that are closest to you, unfortunately to say. It's not how it's supposed to be. So it's really important that you are honest, write down everything, what's the purpose, why you want to do it, and present it. And if your family doesn't accept it, that's okay. Ask Allah again. Be like, Allah, I really, maybe she's my mom's heart for her to see, or maybe my dad's heart so they can see it. And then it could be a sibling that gets you, and that's like your parents' favorite. And then they're like, okay, beta, all right, I get it. I'll listen to your Bajo or your Didi or whoever, right? So, or maybe it's your grandma, right? So maybe it's your, so maybe she's the one that's gonna be like, hey, why are you denying my grandson or my granddaughter or whatever? I'm just kidding. But moral of the story, choose your tribe and choose wisely. Number one, ask Allah, choose your tribe who are going to support you. And those who don't, perfect. Use their criticism as feedback to be better at your craft. Oh, it's going to be da-da-da. Okay, now you know, you could reverse it. So if they say, oh, you don't even have a nice camera or a light or whatever, be like, okay, perfect. Thank you so much for that feedback. I'm like, it wasn't feedback. I was trying to tell you that it's horrible. I'm like, thank you. Now I know to save up money to get a microphone. And it's going to get even better. You know what I'm saying? For now, we're going to use this.
Yeah.
Whatever one from them. You know what I'm saying? So use their criticism as feedback to be better. So they don't have that excuse anymore. Because they'll keep giving more excuses. Thank you for making me even better. You know what I'm saying? So take that feedback is not failure. You know, it's failure is feedback. You know what I'm saying? So don't be afraid that if it didn't work out, it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. We have this idea that it has to be perfect and supposed to make money automatically and supposed to be blah. No, money's from Allah. You just show up The list comes from him. You, as long as you're honest and you're straight up, it's gonna come. And if you're gonna, then don't compare it to anybody else that seems that they got it all going. That's even scarier, because that's also a test, having everything, right? Like I said, don't forget where you started. And be true to yourself and be open to change.
Right.
That's the most important, you know? But most importantly, don't give up. Pause if you have to. Take a break. Go back in a fresh face, but don't give up. Don't internalize it like you're somehow a bad person. That's the worst thing. And it's easier said than done. I probably have to watch this video many times to remind myself, but it's really important that you're not that person. You're just seeing the outside. You don't know what's going on inside. You know, I always say, I'm like, whenever you see somebody with some kind of success, right? You don't know the du'as and the pain and the tears they had to go through for maybe 5 years, 10 years to get to this point. Right. You don't know. A lot of us want the best and the business and all this, but we don't want the hard work to get there.
Yeah.
Right? It's really important.
Yeah, that is so true. Like sometimes it stresses you out to think about the struggles, and then when you see like the good stuff, then that's like what you want, and that's what you're drawn to more, not the struggle. So that's just really cool.
Yes. And one last advice I think is really critical is know yourself, but know how other people see you or see your business. Why? Not because you have to believe it, but if you know you're the underdog, you know what you're up against. So I'll give you an example of what that looks like. Like I knew when I was working in sales in the electronic industry, I knew as not just a female, but a Muslim female, a visible Muslim female, that already worked against me. So many people would not buy or trust me as a salesperson because I'm a female. I must be an idiot and I don't know nothing. Okay. And so it was really important to understand and not take it personal. So I remember one of the advice that was given to me is instead of trying to defend that, just show that you know. And it's interesting because in writing, we always say the best form of writing is showing and not telling. Don't tell me you're angry. Show me you're angry. My fists are curled up, right? Like his brows were furrowed, right? Like stuff like that shows you're angry, right? So I remember a guy came in and he's just like an old white dude, right? And he just comes up to me and I was like, oh, can I help you? And he's like, you work here? And I was like, yeah, I'm clearly in the same uniform as everybody else. Like, what kind of question? See, I can sit here and get mad and angry, right? But you have to see, I know myself. I know I work here. Does that mean because he didn't know I work here, he chose not to know that I work here, does that mean I'm not an employee and I have to degrade myself? No, of course I work here. It's very valid. He's the person that doesn't see it, or he sees it but chooses to ignore it, right? So it's important to know yourself because it's going to help you not internalize what other people think of you, but it's important to know what people think of you because then you know how to still do your job even more. You show up. You know how to say like under promise but over deliver, right? So with this guy, he comes in and he's like, let the big man talk. Where's the manager here? The other guy. I'll just wait for him.
Wow.
20, 30 minutes for the guy before I can just right now help him. I'm like, and what was he holding in his hand? A diode. Okay. I was like, oh, you need help with the diode? Did it blow out? He looked at me so shocked. You see how you show the person? So say before I used to get mad and angry, like, oh, well, forget him, whatever. Instead, I'm like, you know what? I know my knowledge. He doesn't know it. That's fine. I'll show him. I don't have to show him. I'm showing myself. I'm still doing my job, right? Whether he takes it or not. Okay. Oh, you know that? Wow, that's interesting. I was like, well, anyways, what number is it? Is it da-da-da? It looks like a blah, blah, blah number. And now he begrudgingly had to, you know what I'm saying? So the power is in your hand. So know yourself and know how others perceive you. Not so that you can internalize it, but it empowers you so you could be even better at your craft. It's better when people think you're stupid and you show up to be smart. Perfect. It's worse when people think you're smart and you always have to be smart. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You can think I'm stupid all you want. Think I'm the worst all you want. But every time I deliver, it means I always look so amazing, even if it's my sloppiest work, right? So, so that would be like one of my most important advice is that too. So yeah. I'm glad you asked that question. It was really nice.
Yeah, no, Jezaki Allahu Khairan, Sister Shima, thank you for reminding me. I completely forgot. But thank Jezaki Allahu Khairan so much for joining us today. You guys again, find her on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all that. She's super awesome, and Jezaki Allahu Khairan so much for joining us today. You just have so many cool things to talk about, and I was so excited to be here and to learn. Also, my why statement too, so that was so cool. Inshallah, we'll see you guys all soon watching at home. For next week's Muslim Teen Scene and everything in between. And we'll see you all soon. Assalamu alaikum.
All right, take care. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. Okay, she left.